Imagine thinking you need a professional to service the brakes on your Aston Martin. I used to believe that, but guess what? You don't. Today, I'm going to show you just how simple it is to change your own brakes on this high-end machine. Stick around, and by the end of this video, I promise you will have the confidence to do it yourself. So before you jack up the car all the way, you want to make sure that you break the bolts, meaning loosen up the bolts before you jack it off the ground. Because if you don't do that, then you will have no leverage or no resistance on the tire for you to release the bolts. Oh, and the Aston Martin Repeat uses a size 21mm socket. All right, so now these are loose. Now we can jack it up. So the tools needed for this particular job are fairly simple. Obviously, you're gonna need new brake pads. You're gonna need your sensor. This is what tells you that your brake pad is low. Now, the sensors are nice to have, but I wouldn't solely rely on them because I have found that the brake pads have been low and the sensor didn't go off yet. So you don't wanna wait all the time solely on the sensor. You're gonna need hammer, a punch pin. They come in different sizes. Sometimes these can be skinnier. That way you can get into the hole and push the pin through a little bit more. A wire brush. This is to clean the dust and debris away from the caliper and the little grooves. And I'll show you that. And then you're gonna need some type of brake pad lubricant or anti-squeal grease. This is gonna be important if you don't want to experience the squeaking brakes. And then I think that's it. So let's jump into it. All right, so as you can see here are the pins I was referring to and the tension clip. So you have one here, pin, and a pin here. You're gonna knock those out with the punch pin like that and the hammer, 1 and 2. And then this tension comes off and then you're good to go. The brake pads are here and on the inside and you just slide those out. Like I said, I feel as though the big brakes are a lot easier. As you can see, there's only really 2 things that you have to remove in the clip. Then you have full access to the brake pads. So just slide out and back in with the new ones, lube it up, and you're good. You want to make sure that you have this nice and snug onto the pin. If it slipped, then you're going to hit your caliper and you don't want that. As you can see, the pin is out. If you apply pressure at the top and squeeze it in, sometimes you can pull out the pin. If not, you go to the bottom one. So the bottom one came out, as you see. Tension comes off, then you can get the top one out, and then your tension clamp comes off. Now here we have the brake pads right in here. So the pistons are going to be compressing the brake pad, obviously. So you may have to pull back on them a little bit so you can get them out. You want to do even pull across both of them. And you don't need a lot. And then you can slide it out just like that. So now the second one is going to have the sensor on it. So here's the sensor right here. This is what's supposed to tell you when your brake pads are low. Then it clamps in right here. So you want to take note of what brake pad the sensor is on. This one was on the inner, so the one closest to the inside of the car, and then this is your outer brake pad. So now you can reuse these sensors. I typically just replace them. Sometimes people break them when they're replacing the brake pads, and sometimes they just break. So, I mean, they're not that expensive, so I would just replace it. That way, at least you know the sensor is brand new. All right, so we have the brakes out. Now this is the part that you want to clean. Dirt builds up in here and brake dust, and that's what causes squeaking and all that stuff. So now this is when the wired brush comes into play. This is what you'll use to clean this part here. I like to put some paper towel down because brake dust gets messy. and do the top as well. So you can use a little brake cleaner as well. See how much dirt is on there. Obviously, I mean, it's brakes. Another thing I like to do when you have the wheel off is to clean your actual caliper. You can wipe it down, clean it up. You don't get too many opportunities to take the wheel off, so you can take this time to clean your caliper as well. So here are my pins and my tension clip. Typically you want to replace those. The kit that I got, I thought I was going to get that in there, but I did not. So I'm going to have to reuse these. And then like I said, I'm probably going to change out the rotor and the brake pads for the next time. But in the meantime, I'm just going to clean these up and reuse them. Now there's nothing wrong with these. Like, you're not doing anything that's unsafe by reusing these. It's just that you may get some squeaking, but we're gonna clean these up and then put the grease on there to avoid squeaking. So some key points you wanna clean are the contact points. So here is where the pins go on both sides. So you wanna make sure you clean those parts. Now if you get a new one, you don't have to do all this cleaning, and you should be good to go. But you can see where the pad hits right here. Right where that shiny part is where the pad normally lands. All right, there you go. Now you see we have it cleaned up and we're ready to put the new pads in there. So the sensor is going to be different varying on the car. So here's where the sensor plugs in, back here. And then you can see it runs down, and then it goes onto the actual pad here. So this is the old one. I'm going to replace it. And then we can put the new pads in there. So this is held in by a clamp. You just push it, and then you pull the white part up. All right, there we go. We have the old one off. All right, so now we're about to put the new pad in here. But here's a comparison. This is the new one. This is the old one. You see there's more meat on the new one here than the old one. So what we have here is the back pad. It's got like this is supposed to be an anti-squeal padding or some kind of surface there. These red plugs here, they do come out, so don't forget to take those out. All right, so we have that. So now, with this, there's a few points we want to put grease on. Definitely you don't want to put grease on your pad part. This is the part that actually touched the rotor. But you do want a little grease here. This is where the pistons touch. And you can use the old one as reference. See where those circles are? That's where the pistons touch. I like to put grease there. And then I put grease here. I like to put grease here because that's a contact point on the caliper. I put grease here, here, and then some down here as well. So this grease stuff can be pretty messy, so you want to be careful. Make sure you don't get it onto the pad, like I said, onto this side. All right, we should be good. All right, so we're gonna slide this in. And you wanna make sure your pistons are all the way compressed. All right, so a good way to get the calipers pushed back out so you can get the new pads in there, because they, compress in as the pad goes down. So use the old one, put it in there, and then I push, and that pushes the pistons back into the caliper. So some people use a screwdriver, put it in there and press against the rotor. But since I'm keeping the rotor and just changing the pads, I don't want to do that and damage it. All right, so we did the same thing on the other side. Since the sensor is up here on the top, you'll see that there's a slit, and that's where the sensor goes. We're gonna put this, make sure that it's facing up. So the sensor goes right there. So now we can put the new sensor in there. It does come with the bracket to hold it in there. Back there, there's two holes that fits in here. This is the spot where this goes, this bracket here goes in there. There is an old one. I couldn't get the bracket off of this one, so I had to remove that, and that was a bit of a hassle, but nevertheless got it off. So we're just gonna put that in there like so and plug it in. So there you have it. You want to make sure that you push this until it clicks. Then you just wrap these around. This wire goes through like that, and you're good. Now we're gonna grease up our retaining clamp pins. I also put grease on the points here. This is where it holds the pads in, so I put it right there so that doesn't squeak. You can put a little in here. Put it on the other side where the other pin goes. All right, so we put our pin back through there. Do the same to the other pin. Now, we're gonna have to push this down so we can get the other pin in there. All right, once you got that in there, you're gonna have to hammer them back through. Now you should see that start to come back through. And you wanna hammer it till it comes all the way back and it's flat on the back side. And we're gonna do the same thing for the bottom one. All right, so as you see there, everything's back in. Only thing we have to do now is just put our sensor back in here. But you can see wherever the grease is, that's where we are meeting metal on metal, and that's what we want to prevent from squeaking. That's typically where the dust gets trapped in there and starts squeaking at. So there is a certain way this goes. As you can see, there's a little hump on here. Flip it over, it's flat. So the hump part goes in facing the rotor. So now it has to go all the way on there. This one is presenting this one is hard to get on. So this one is kind of difficult to get on. All right, so we have it in there, and you want to make sure that you get it all the way in there. As you can see, the metal clamp there is flush with the brake pad. So this particular one kind of had like a 2-stage insertion, kind of. It felt like it was in, but then I pushed it one more time and it went all the way in. All right, so we're done with the passenger side. Now we're gonna do the driver's side, same thing. And on the repeat, it has 2 sensors on the left and right. Some cars only have the sensor on one side. So you do the exact same thing on the other side that you did on this side. So I'm gonna do that off camera, and then that'll be it. All right, so there you have it. We have successfully installed the rear brake pads. So now all we have to do is bed in the brakes, and that's gonna vary based on the manufacturer of your brake pads. But remember to do that. That's very important. That prevents squealing in the future, and make sure that you have a nice marriage of the rotors and the pads. So remember, do it until you can't. Until next time, I'm out.